So this is my project, pine plantations in the southeastern of the U.S. Pine plantation is a large estate farm that is used to cultivate pine trees. There are many across the United States, but there's a high population of pine plantations in the southeastern portion of the country. In fact, Georgia alone is called the Saudi Arabia of pine trees, just because there's so much oil over there. It's crazy how many pine trees we have. Where are some of the common places of Georgia? South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Virginia. And as seen on this map, the light green represents the more populated areas, pine trees. The orange is there is, but they're usually different kinds of your common, more like evergreen type pine trees, but your most common ones like spruce or redwoods, and that's mainly what's in this area. So, in the 1950s, there were a lot of abandoned and degraded agricultural land. It was causing many environmental issues such as soil erosion. The reason why there was so much abandoned agricultural land in the South is because in the 1930s, the pulp and paper industry started to boom, and almost all the resources for pulp and paper came from pine trees. So therefore, the demand for pine trees became increasingly high, and so the cutting started to begin. With the mass cutting of pine trees in the South, it caused a huge deforestation problem. With deforestation occurring, you had many environmental issues such as certain species becoming endangered, like some of the Georgia owls were, and then like water supply. People ask why water supply. It's just because trees hold up so much water in them. It's one of the only sources that brings the water out of the ground and back into the water cycle through evaporation. After World War II, in Vietnam, researchers started noticing the real bad effects of the cutting of pines in the South. Like I said before, there's water supply, there's air pollution, and low oxygen levels, just because trees simply, or I guess it wouldn't be simply, but because of photosynthesis, they give us oxygen, and we have air pollution because of industries from the pulp and all the smoke that's coming out of there, deforestation, and endangering species, like I just said, in act of noticing the effects, organizations started to buy land from farmers to start planting pines all over the South, and it eventually created many pine plantations. Some of the organizations were U.S. Forest Service, forestry programs at Southern universities, forestry agencies, and the forest industry. So some of the change that's happened at the beginning of the 1950s, there were only 1.8 million acres of pines. And by the end of the 21st century, there were 32 million acres of pine plantations in the South, not even including the rest of the U.S. And also, a side note is today some pulp industries have started to farm their own trees and cut only the trees they planted for their product, and which is great. Also, some more results. Since there's an increasingly high number of pine plantations today in the South, much change has happened. Oxygen levels are now nowhere near as low as they used to be. The water supply is a lot better, even though we still tend to have droughts sometimes, and there's not as much air pollution in the South anymore. That's why we're excited.